guys, welcome to another edition of Strategic Moves with Mike Henry, a local Wichita Falls area radio talk show host, also a licensed real estate agent. And seated over here is Lou Italis. She's the owner broker of Strategic Realty here in Wichita Falls. And you've heard us talking a lot lately about the state of the real estate market, residential real estate market.
Correct.
It has been a seller's market for quite a while now. And interest rates have been just stupid cheap, really. And people are buying houses for, well, here in the local market, we've been seeing houses sell for, 10, 20, I don't know, maybe as much as 30% or more above asking, depending on the house.
I think it's headed in that direction. I think for the most part, a lot of agents are struggling to get things in contract unless they have something that's at least above 20% above asking price.
Well, and then you go into larger markets, the Dallas area, Austin, San Antonio. It's even more competitive there.
I don't know that Dallas is actually too bad right now. It just depends on the price range. Like if we're talking about between 150 and 450.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a family member in the Dallas area who's also in the real estate business. Mm-hmm. She had one listing. She had 30 offers on one single listing. It turned into an all-out bidding war over this one property.
How much work that is?
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. You spend all your time working on that one property because you've got so many offers coming in, and everyone's competing against one another for that. And it's a struggle. Let me start here if we can.
Okay.
Today. And because you've been doing, I'm a newbie at this. You've been doing this a few years. Have you ever seen a market like this?
Not in Wichita Falls. In the Dallas area, yes.
Yeah.
Because I do have, we're licensed in the state of Texas, so I've done transactions all over the state.
Right. Well, Strategic has an office in Pilot Point, right?
Yes, we do have an office in Pilot Point, and I've got a couple of agents actually also in the Houston area. And that's another hot little area.
Yeah, but that you kind of expect this in those areas.
In the metropolitan areas, yes, we expect it, especially like when you start going into the suburbs and stuff like that. But in the urban areas, which Wichita Falls is considered an urban area, even though we have 100,000 people here, it's still considered urban.
Yeah.
We don't see it that much. Maybe in College Station or some of the smaller urban areas in Texas, it might be a little bit more activity, but this is a phenomena that we haven't really experienced in the last 15, 20 years. I don't think any real estate agent in Wichita Falls has ever experienced this.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And as the name of the show would suggest, if you're going to make a move right now, you need to be pretty strategic about that move. You need to plan it out because right now the biggest challenge, I guess, for any buyer, regardless of the price point you're trying to buy at, whether it's $125,000 or $325,000.
Even it's crazy. I did a search the other day for houses above $350,000. There's only like 5 in all of Wichita Falls above $350,000.
So really, no matter what price point you're at, the biggest challenge for the buyer right now is just finding a property and being able to get a bid in on it, and hope you get the winning bid.
We have a vacuum right now. I mean, there's just not enough inventory on the market to accommodate the amount of sellers that we have. And I don't know that we really have. I mean, everybody says, like we have all these people that are relocating here, and there's this influx of new people that are moving here. And I don't know that that's 100% true. I think our inventory of buyers has remained pretty steady, but the inventory of listings have gone down so bad that those buyers are starting to build up.
Well, there's
where we got a lot of inventory of buyers out there, but it's not because we got like this influx of people moving here. It's mainly because they've been waiting in the wings to buy a house for so long now.
Well, and I just... I have to think that we have picked up that our population has Wichita Falls has picked up a little bit.
I think we have. I think that we've increased our population here by at least 10 to 15,000 people.
Yeah,
if not a little bit more.
Well, could be. I would be a little more conservative on that guess. I think closer to 5 or 8,000. But
true.
Well, because I think some of the what you folks in larger cities would call bedroom communities. Iowa Park, Burke Burnett, Henrietta, Byers
Right.
Petrolia area, those areas that you would call a bedroom community, for example. They probably have picked up some of that influx as well because,
Yeah.
well, like myself, I bought a house a couple of years ago. And I bought a home in Burke Burnett. And the house that I bought in Burke Burnett would have cost me $25,000, $30,000 more if I'd bought it in Wichita Falls. Easily, it would have cost me more. I made a
You
pretty
have higher taxes, though.
I have higher taxes, but on the front end of the purchase, I got a better bargain. But so I have to think that there's got to be some spread into
markup.
those areas there for that. But right now, seriously, if you're a buyer, your biggest challenge is just finding the property.
That is the biggest challenge, and I think that we need to have, people that are planning on selling their house or thinking about selling their house in the next 6 months. They need to kind of reconsider their stance on it because it's creating that giant vacuum. So I mean, you get a lot of listings that are a lot of sellers that are saying, "Well, I just don't want to put my house on the market right now because there's really nothing for me to buy." Well, then if you don't put your house on the market, then there isn't anything for anybody else to buy either.
Right.
So it just creates this cycle, and
It's a vicious circle we're in here right now. A vicious circle indeed.
and I mean, there's so much money out there right now. I mean, it's just crazy. It's a crazy amount of money that people are paying for these houses. So I mean, sometimes maybe investors need to start selling their houses and doing 1031 exchanges. I mean, it because in 6 months the market might be completely different. So maximize your investment, the return on your investment now.
See,
and then,
there's no way for us to know as real estate agents. There's no way for us to know, and there's no way for anyone to know what's going to happen with, for example, with interest rates. If they decide to raise interest rates a quarter of a point, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, that would have a significant impact on everything.
And right now the best thing to do is, I mean, we're hearing a lot about the Biden administration is going to increase the cap rate. I mean, the capital gains tax.
Yes.
So that's a big deal for a lot of investors. So if that's going to be happening soon, you might consider doing a 1031 exchange right now while the or not even doing a 1031, but selling your properties now.
Explain to people what a 1031 exchange is.
Well, a 1031 exchange is basically you're deferring the taxes until a later date. So, for instance, if I have a property right now that's a rental property and I decide to sell that property, well, the gain on that sale is usually taxable that year.
Right.
So I have, huge capital gain taxes that I'm going to be paying that year. Well, if I do it as a 1031 exchange, then I'm going to be deferring those taxes until later on. So I basically, you tell your agent that you want to do a 1031 exchange, and then they set it up to where once you sell that property, those proceeds go into like a trust account. And they stay there, and you have to identify another property that you're going to purchase, or a list of properties. If you want to buy, you can sell one house and buy 3.
Right.
You just have to use those gains towards that.
Right. You have to be reinvesting that money.
Correct. So once you identify 3 or 4 properties, usually that has to happen within the first 90 days. And then after that, you have another 90 days to actually close on it. So realistically, it's a 6-month holding period. And you can take those gains and you can defer the taxes. You have to hold on to the next property that you purchase for at least 2 years to defer the taxes on that property. And then after that, you can do another 1031 exchange and do the same thing. And so you can continuously, it's almost like having a Roth IRA where you're deferring the taxes until you actually withdraw those funds.
Right. It buys you some time.
And that way you can maybe wait until we figure out what's going to happen with these capital gains. And, if in 4 years that changes again, then now you can relook at all of your investments and do that.
Well,
but
it brings up a very good point. One of the scariest things for anyone in any business, whether it's real estate, doesn't matter what business you're in, uncertainty.
Right.
Is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Not having a good read on what's going to happen in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. When you have a little predictability into the system.
Instability causes all kinds of issues when it comes to the market.
And uncertainty, just not knowing what's going to happen next. And so when these leaders out here, the people that are controlling these interest rates and these taxes and so forth, when they're vague about what direction they may go, that's what creates the uncertainty, and it makes it tough. Then you got to play this guessing game about, well, where do we go next? And if you're an investor in property, oh man, you really got to play a guessing game.
Yeah.
You really got a guessing game on your hands.
And there's a lot of different strategies that you can use as far as the 1031 exchange. You don't so for instance, if I sold my house for $130,000 and I found two houses that I wanted to purchase, but they were cheaper than that, that's fine. And then any excess of that I can actually use towards repairs. So you can strategize it to where you're not actually putting any money into this venture. You're just using your equity from one purchase to another to increase your But
portfolio.
You
don't have to necessarily take 100% of the equity toward the purchase of the next property.
Correct. You just have to identify the property, purchase the property, and then if there's anything left in that 1031 exchange trust account, then you can with invoices and stuff like that, you can withdraw those funds for that purpose. It has to be for the purpose of the investment.
Make sure you keep every receipt. Don't lose any of them, please.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's really bad. So, we talk about how it's a seller's market, and it is, but like you said, this is a double-edged sword here. If you're thinking about selling, but you're reluctant because you don't know where you're going to buy or if you can buy anything, then you do become part of that vicious circle we talked about. But at the same time, if you are a seller, you've got just a plethora of potential buyers out there right now. You've got a good crop of people that are looking for a house. And
cash buyers I have never seen so many cash buyers in this market. I don't know.
And I've met a couple in the last several months that were people that, for example, both of these individuals had owned homes in California. They sold their homes there, made a great gain. They walked away with a great profit on their home, and they were able to come here to Texas and purchase a new home. They got a bigger home than they had in California with more property for less money, and they paid cash for it because they had enough gain from the sale of their home out on the West Coast to come here to Texas and buy. I mean, you can buy a really nice home here for $200,000, $250,000, $300,000. You can buy a beautiful home, and that same home, you pick it up and you plant it on the West Coast, it's $750,000 or more,
if not more.
Not more, and some of them you're talking. Matter of fact, a friend of mine just recently had a friend that had purchased a home out there that. Someone he knew had owned it previously. When they bought that home, they paid about $500,000 for it. When he bought the home, his friend bought the home, they paid $1.6 million for it. This thing doubled in value, and this is in a 8-10 year period. I mean, a fairly short time frame. Not nice home, nice community, nice everything.
I'm a little bit afraid.
Doubled.
I mean, I don't know that we here in Wichita Falls really need to be afraid about this, but in the more metropolitan areas, in the more in the Metroplex, I think that we're going to start seeing. I guess it just all really depends on what the climate whatever happens in the next 4 years. But we're starting to see a little bit of a bubble in Texas. I don't think that Texas really got affected by the California and the Florida bubbles and the New York bubbles and stuff like that. But, I mean, if things keep going in the direction that they're going, we're starting to build up to something. I mean, I'm seeing the writing on the wall.
Well, but you personally had one, didn't you, in the Austin area that went 6 figures above ask.
$100,000 over asking price, yep.
And that was a scenario that was unheard of here, even in those places.
Yeah, I mean, here we haven't seen that quite yet. I mean, it was listed for $250, and we wound up getting it for $360.
Wow, $110,000 over there.
Yeah, it was just crazy. It still blows my mind.
That's just wild. I can't imagine.
It wrinkled my brain.
Well, I mean, the seller has got to be just ecstatic, and the buyer is got to be sitting there thinking, Oh, Lord, I hope
Hopefully.
I can get my money back out of this someday.
Well, thankfully enough, the couple that purchased it, they're planning on. I mean, that's why they're going to start their family. So
It's
you
a
know,
forever home.
Well, no, it might not be their forever home, but at least that's where they're going to start their family. So they'll at least be there for at least 7.5 years or something.
If I bought it, it'd be my forever home because it'd take me forever to pay for it. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But yeah, as the sellers, it's a seller's market, but it's kind of a scary seller's market in a way because you do have that, and I think it's a legitimate fear of.
It is. It is.
Especially if you've got a home that, let's say you paid $150,000 for it, and you sell it for $250,000. Okay, but you didn't necessarily make. You probably still have a mortgage on it, so you got to pay that off.
Right.
Let's say you walk away with $60,000 or $70,000 profit off the deal.
And that's that right now. If you have your homestead and that's where you want to make some money, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
If you're an investor, you have to do a 1030. You should do a 1031
Right.
exchange. But homeowners, our homesteads, we can actually defer $250,000 worth of gain on the sale of your own personal home. So if if you're worried about tax purposes, you don't have to worry about it unless you're making over $250,000 on the sale of your home.
Now, what about these folks that say, because I just recently was talking with someone that's in this situation. So they got a home that's $100,000 roughly home that they lived in for several years, and they had an opportunity to buy another home that they've now moved into, and they've been in it for a year and a half, whatever. But they still haven't sold their other house yet. They're still holding on to it, and at some point they're going to put it on the market. When they sell that home, now that's not their homestead any longer. That first home, they're not living there, and they haven't lived there in a while.
I'd have to refresh my memory on it, but if I remember correctly, you have to be living in the home for at least 2 out of the last 5 years.
Okay.
So if you used it as your homestead for at least 2 out of the last 5 years, you can still defer the taxes on that. But
okay.
I'd have to look up the tax code because that changes in a blink too.
You never know.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was the case.
So it is possible that if you're within that time frame, you might still be able to salvage yourself
you
as
still
far
might
as taxes
be able to
go.
defer those taxes.
Yeah. And that's another thing that's just got to frighten people. And that's where you got to get your tax attorneys, your accountants, your tax professionals involved in it. If you got questions about that, you got to consult them. Your real estate agent can help you a whole bunch, but there's only so much we're allowed to tell you. There's only so much we're allowed to do. And so once you get into that area of the legalities of it, that's where you need to sit down with your accounting people and consult with them.
It's not so much that we can't tell you what to do on the tax purposes. We can't tell you, we can't advise you legally about things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We can't give you legal advice.
Yeah,
we can't do that.
In that instance, you would have to talk to your attorney.
Yeah.
But as far as giving people advice on how to defer their taxes and stuff like that, we can do that as long as we have the knowledge. And the only reason why I have the knowledge is because I used to work as a CPA.
Well, there you go.
There you go. I just have a unique little data bank in there that
Yeah.
It's still kicking.
Well, so if you personally were selling your personal home today, would you have any reservations about now being the time to sell? Be honest. You personally, would you?
I never really considered selling my own personal home simply because I don't want to move again. I'm a military spouse, and I've already moved all over the country.
You don't want to move anymore.
Yeah, all over the world. But so I'm pretty much settled as far as like where I want to be in my life. I'm not planning on. I've contemplated selling the house because of the fact that gains are so high right now. I could probably make about $60,000 or $70,000 on the sale of my own personal home right now. Yeah. But just the thought of moving and packing and everything, unless somebody came in there and did it for me, I don't think I'd do it again.
Going through that whole scenario again. It just and I would imagine there's got to be a lot of people that are in that same position.
Right.
That they,
But if you were planning on selling your home, if you were planning on upgrading a home or something like that, now is the time to do it. If I was planning on doing something like that,
Right.
I really haven't planned on doing anything in that sense. I mean, I've got 1,400. I don't have a really big home. I've got 1,400 square feet. It's just me. Both of my kids are already. I'm already loose and fancy free, so they've already moved on to their college and families and stuff like that. So it for me, 1,400 square feet is more than sufficient.
Right.
And
But you got 98% of the buyers out here all looking for the same thing. Everybody needs at least 3 bedrooms. They want at least 2 bathrooms.
I don't even know how that started. Like I mean, I get it. You don't want to share a bathroom with anybody. I mean, that's kind of hard to do. But I was thinking about that the other day, the history of that, because there's a lot of homes in Wichita Falls that were built originally back in the 60s, and they were built as a 3-1.5 or a 3-1.
Right.
And so, these families, they would share this one bathroom together. And I don't know how it all of a sudden
That's
got
how we
started.
grew up.
Yeah, exactly.
One bathroom.
You had one bathroom, and that was for everybody, even your guests. Well, no, sometimes some homes had like that half bath in the master bathroom.
No, we didn't. Everybody just had to fight over the one bathroom, or flip a coin or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now everybody must have a 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
3-bed, 2-bath, and almost everybody would love to have a garage. They don't seem to care whether it's attached or detached, but they want a garage. You got a lot of people out here that they want they want storage on the property, or they want a shop on the property.
Or land.
Yeah,
That's a
or
big
land.
one, too.
Right.
Land
So
is really hard to find.
tell me about it. I got somebody right now. I'm trying to help them find some land.
Really?
Some acreage to build on.
Wow.
And it's like we find it and it's way out of budget, or we find it and it's not enough acreage to do what they want to do. It's nice, but it's just not enough. There's not enough of it, and there's nothing around it to buy. So they're kind of landlocked. And it's like, well, what do you do? Well, you sit and you wait, or you try to find a property owner that isn't selling and go to them and go, would you like to sell? I mean,
here's what I can offer you.
Here's what we can offer you, and that's really your choices. So you sit and wait, or you make an offer to someone who's not necessarily actively trying to sell at the moment. But other than that, you're right, land is tough. But people, 98% of the home shoppers out here are looking for the same thing. And so when everybody's wanting basically the same thing, and you just don't have enough of it to go around, this is the situation we're in. So you think at some point, though, this has got to change, doesn't it? Something's got to give, doesn't it?
We've all been saying that for the last 5 years.
Well, I just
this has to change. Something has to change, and nobody ever really. There's no answer for that. I can't really give you an answer.
It's
on
not.
that.
I don't know. You don't necessarily want anyone to force anything to happen. You don't want to see anything just being arbitrarily done to try to force a change. But you would think at some point, just organically, pressures one way or another would cause things to develop in another direction.
Well, and you said the magic word right there, develop.
Yeah.
The only way that this is going to change, or that we're going to improve the situation, is if we start to develop,
build more homes.
Yeah. It's a need right now. Right now, there's a huge need for affordable homes, which is something that Strategic is doing. We are building some affordable homes over there off of Northwest Drive. Yeah. We've got, hopefully this summer we're going to have, we can't keep them we can't. I've got already about 3 or 4 contracts for homes that aren't even built yet. Right. So, we can't even keep the inventory in that sense either.
Well, and that's another thing, too, with the development side of it. There was a point a few years ago where you could start a house in January, and by May, June, you were moved in and all was well.
Today it's right now it's crazy. This just materials is just, we can't find brick.
I've heard this. Yeah, brick. Some types of the stone, like the Austin stone and decorative stones, are getting tough to find.
I'm just trying to find brick, and I wound up having to pay like 50 cents a brick just to get brick.
Certain grades of cabinet plywood are in short supply right now. Look at 7/16 OSB, which is what most of these houses are skinned in now. Roof,
Right.
walls, everything. That's been the go-to sheathing of choice for years now. 18 months, 24 months ago, you could buy it all day long for less than $10 a sheet.
Yeah, now it's at like 45 or something like that.
49 the last time I looked. $49 a sheet for 7/16 OSB. So you're talking it's we've seen the price almost quintuple in less than 2 years. And a lot of this has to do with the pandemic. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of lumber operations that had to shut down because of that. But also demand is so high. And so this is a fine example of why it's so dangerous to just put the brakes on an economy. Just stop production.
You can't really.
Now,
if we ever, this is going to be a steep learning curve. We're going to have a steep learning curve in this.
Majorly. Well, and now you're trying to play catch up. Now you've got the producers of these materials trying to fulfill back orders as well as fulfill the current demand that's there. And, I'm hearing people saying, to get a house built now in some areas, 12 to 18 months. That's the timeline they're giving you.
We may have that problem, but at the same time, I think it really just depends on the quality. Not quality, but the we're trying to keep them affordable. But
Right.
if we can't keep if this keeps up, we're going to be in the $200,000 mark.
Well,
as far as like the homes that we're building right now, we're trying to stay under 175.
Right.
And
that's getting
starting
tough.
to be it's getting to be pretty tough.
It's getting
to
tough.
do that.
Well, if you got a bid on a project 3 months ago, that bid's probably not valid anymore. Because the price increases. And I mentioned this on the last show that we did. There was an article in Forbes magazine recently. They said that we've seen a 180% increase in material costs. 180%. Now that's not in everything, but in some of your most 2x4s and sheetrock and brick and stone and plywood and OSB and all of the things, the basic components that every house must. It doesn't matter what you're building. Whether it's 1,000 square feet or 5,000.
Yeah. I drove by Longo the other day, and I was shocked at how empty they're.
Right.
It's just like I drove past it, and it was almost like crickets.
And it's a great being busy and having high demand for your product is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
But it's also a scary problem to have, because when you can't replenish that product as rapidly as you did.
I don't think that we really need to start a panic on that.
I know.
Because this too shall pass.
It will. But we got to catch up with ourselves here.
Yeah. It's going to get better. It's just a matter of time, and hopefully it happens before the end of the summer.
I think it will.
But if it doesn't, then then we're going to have to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
it's challenging us to think differently. I think that's the main thing that we're learning about all of this, COVID and everything, the economic environment that we're in, the political environment that we're in. It's just that it's forcing us to think things a little bit differently, or think outside the box, or hide ourselves in our bedrooms. I don't know.
Maybe do what Ed Begley Jr. did and build your house out of milk cartons or something. Seriously, he's a big eco-friendly green guy and an actor.
He's going to run out of milk cartons soon.
Yeah, what are you doing when there's no more milk cartons to buy? Come on. How are you going to add on that sunroom with no milk cartons? But anyway, it's a tough problem to have, but at the same time, though, it's kind of an exciting time to be in this business.
Right.
Because you've got a lot of things.
The limit at this point.
Oh, yeah. How high is high? And it's just, there's a lot of moving parts right now. And I think everybody in the business, from real estate agents and brokers to builders and suppliers, everybody, the bankers, the appraisers, I think everybody is learning new lessons about this industry called real estate. Everybody is learning some new things about it and seeing new things develop. And we're
learning how to do things differently, and that's always an exciting thing to do. we're doing things a lot more virtually. We're starting to see that actually still does, that it does work. You know, I mean, that was a big, huge struggle for a long time. Is we have the technology, we have the ability to do things in a different way, but for years we haven't been doing it. So there's a big savings there to an extent. You know, I mean, when you don't have to travel across the world to buy a house, you can buy something over the internet.
We don't have time to do it today, but on a future show, I would love to hear us talk about the barn dominium craze.
I think that's I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You're still seeing them built out here, and it kind of puzzles me. And I'm almost shocked at the people that I see wanting to build them. I'm like, you don't look like a barn person to me. But
my son wants one so bad. He can taste it. I just don't understand it myself.
Well, maybe we can talk about it here on a future show. In the meantime, if you've got questions for us, or if you want to list your house for sale, or if you're in the market for something, give us a call. Strategic Realty, 940-689-7900.
Yes, sir.
Is the number, or you can go to strategicrealty.net, of course, and visit the website and look there as well. But, of course, you can find these previous episodes of this on YouTube, on Spotify.
Subscribe, like, and share.
Subscribe, like, and share on Facebook as well. And we want to thank Terry McAdams and MacTech Solutions for providing the studio space and helping us get all this set up and done. And on that note, we will say goodbye, and we will see you next time with another episode of Strategic Moves with Lou.
Thank you for joining us.
Take care out there.
Bye-bye.